Okay, so from what you've said, then I was about to go to, maybe the women went to a different tomb and found that different tomb empty. What do you say to that? I think you may have already responded to that, given that the disciples had appearances of the risen Christ.
Yeah,
So what do you say? I guess just in general to the hallucination theory.
well, in terms of the wrong tomb, let's do with that first. The wrong tomb theory, that the women went to the wrong tomb. Let's face it, when the women came back, if the Gospels are correct, the disciples didn't believe based on their testimony. Um, you've got John that says Peter and the beloved
Ah,
disciple ran to the tomb.
good
Peter
point.
left, confused. The beloved disciple saw and believed. He's about the only one, if we interpret that believed to mean believe Jesus had been raised. It's a difficult verse there. He believed, yet they didn't understand the scriptures. So that's kind of odd. But um,
Could they have
so
went to the wrong tomb also? Not just the women, but the disciples? Possible.
I suppose they could have, but even then, when the disciples saw that when Peter and the beloved disciples, especially Peter, when he saw the tomb was empty, it didn't say he believed. It didn't even say the women believed, right? In fact, Mary came back and said they've taken the body.
Hmm.
We don't know where they've laid him. And later they're saying, she's speaking to who she thinks is the gardener. And hey, if you've taken him and reburied him somewhere, let me know so that I can get him. So the empty tomb did not convince them Jesus had been raised. It was the appearances that convinced them Jesus
Mm-hmm.
had been raised. Theft, an empty tomb could have only indicated theft to them. And certainly that would have been the first thing that Paul would have suspected.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. What else is there? What's another? What do
You
you
got
think?
hallucinations, you mentioned, right?
Yeah. Okay. Hallucinations.
Okay, so first let's understand what a hallucination is. It is a distorted perception of reality. You think you're seeing, if it's a visual hallucination, you think you're seeing something that's not actually there. If it's an auditory, you think you're hearing something like a voice or music, but that's not actually there. And we've all had like an auditory hallucination where we thought
Mm-hmm.
we heard someone call our name, but they didn't. We've had a tactile hallucination when we put our cell phone in our pocket during a lecture and we had it on silent and we thought that we felt it vibrate. And we
Mm-hmm.
pulled it out thinking we got a text message and it's like, nope, nobody loves me. And it's like, that's a tactile hallucination. We've also had what are called kinesthetic hallucinations. That's when you are like, you have a sense of motion. So you might be having a dream that you're falling and then you wake up. That is a kinesthetic hallucination. Um, the person most likely to experience a hallucination is a person grieving over the loss of a loved one. And multiple studies have shown an average of 7% of them experience a visual hallucination.
Hmm.
Moreover, hallucinations, because they are distorted perceptions of reality, false, not distorted, they're false sensory perceptions. Um, they're going on in my mind. They're not going on in your mind
Mm-hmm.
simultaneously. I couldn't wake up my wife and say, honey, I'm having a dream. I'm in Maui. Go back to sleep. Join me in my dream and let's have a free vacation.
Mm-hmm.
You can't participate in the same dream. You might dream you might dream you're in the same place, but you're not interacting with one another in the same way in the same dream. It's not the same dream because it's going on in your head. It's no external reality. And it's the same with a hallucination. You can't have a group hallucination. You can have a group illusion, like you think you see Mary in the side of a building that has mirror glasses on it, but you can have an optical illusion, but you're not going to have a mass hallucination.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So with that, consider that not 7%, but an unthinkable 100% of Jesus' disciples had these experiences of the risen that they interpreted as the risen Jesus appearing to them. Number two, there are multiple group appearances that are reported. Even in the earliest report in 1 Corinthians 15, verses 3 through 8, and 3 through 7 go back very early as an oral tradition. You've got three group appearances to the 12, to more than 500, and to all the apostles. You've got other group appearances reported in the Gospels. So this wasn't a hallucination. And then you got the appearance to Paul. Paul's not grieving. Paul thought Jesus was a failed Messiah and a false prophet. So Jesus would have been the last person in the universe that Paul would have expected to see or wanted to see. And if we grant the empty tomb, hallucinations don't explain how the tomb got empty. The body should have still been in there. So there's all kinds of reasons. A hallucination wouldn't lead to the impression or thought that someone's grave was now empty. They thought that the person was raised spiritually, that their ghost, their spirit was appearing to them. So there's all kinds of reasons to reject the hallucination hypothesis.
Hey, if you enjoyed that clip, you will absolutely love the full interview, so click right there to enjoy the whole thing. Also, a big thanks to these groups who made that interview possible. Learn more in the show notes below about these guys. They're absolutely incredible and honored to have them as sponsors. Oh, and also, if you haven't subscribed yet, click subscribe and then that bell button. That way YouTube will be forced to let you know when we put out more content.